Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, a robbery in broad daylight at one of the world's most famous museums. The Louvre Museum in Paris is now closed for investigations after thieves broke in and stole priceless pieces of a collection. David Yves reports from Paris. Tens of thousands took to the streets across the country on Saturday for No Kings protests. We'll take you to Chicago, where NTD's Chris Bob is on the ground with demonstrators. The Gaza peace deal hanging by a thread as Israel launches strikes into Gaza, saying the Hamas terrorist group violated the ceasefire agreement. Two geopolitical analysts join us to unpack what's next for the region. Is human connection suffering in the digital age? An expert zooms in on the challenges of social connection and shares tips for building social confidence. And the powerful gods of ancient Egypt are having a get-together at New York's Metropolitan Museum. Find out how ancient Egyptians solved life's mysteries through gods and goddesses.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Yesterday, the No Kings protest swept across the country. Organizers say more than 2,600 events took place nationwide. In Chicago, tens of thousands filled Grant Park before marching through downtown. Only a smaller group continued on to the Broadview ICE Detention Center, where demonstrations stretched into the night. NTD's Chris Bob joins us live from outside the Broadview ICE Detention Center. Good evening, Chris. Give us a sense of what you saw on the ground, the size of the crowd downtown, how the march unfolded, and who turned out to take part.
Good evening, Tiffany. Thank you. Yesterday, the big protest here in Chicago was at Grant Park, like you mentioned. Tens of thousands turned up. There were some other protests in Chicago in the suburb area. The main stage was there in Grant Park, where Governor J.B. Pritzker spoke, as well as Chicago Mayor Johnson. The crowd was composed primarily of people who are upset and angered about the increase of ICE agents in their communities here in Chicago. I spoke to a number of protesters there. Many of them were college students and people who were retired. They shared with me that they were most upset about seeing the agents outside detaining people in shopping centers, at Walmart, or in some of the local businesses where they grew up and where they reside. The crowd moved from Grant Park on a massive march that went on for 2 miles down into downtown Chicago on Wacker Drive. And that's exactly opposite the Trump Towers hotel and residences across the Chicago River.
And Chris, later in the evening, when that smaller group moved to Broadview, what was the moment when things started to get tense between protesters and police?
It really was the curfew. There is a designated protest zone. You can see it behind me. It's all in the concrete blocks. Protesters are allowed to be here and protest outside the ICE detention center from 9 o'clock in the morning until 6 p.m. at night. A little earlier, I would say around 5:30 p.m., we did see one protester dressed in black bloc, which is a full black uniform, black shoes, black bicycle helmet, black jacket, detained by police. And we saw about 24 ICE officers march back from Beach Street, which is right behind me, and assist the officers who were already there with the protester making an arrest. A number of the protesters in the designated protest zone moved onto the street, and things got a little heated for about 20-25 minutes, and then the officers retreated. They made the arrest, and protesters went back to the zone. At about 6:10, the group of 24 officers came on Beach Street again, and they were telling the protesters who were still assembled that curfew is here, it's time to go home. The protesters responded that they were not leaving. And for about an hour, right here is Lexington Street. It stretches into the neighboring community of Maywood. Protesters stood their ground, but were steadily pushed back closer to Maywood until they were outside of the general protest area where the ICE facility was. They were dressed up in costumes, some of them at the front, where you can see a large frog holding a sign about human rights. There were some that had jackets that said Antifa on them, a lot of people in Black Bloc, as well as some observers from the like legal observers as well. And that finished around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. They were all gone by then. Tiffany.
All right, Chris, thanks for that, and stay safe out there. From a historic Gaza peace deal to major White House announcements on foreign policy and family care, this week saw a host of updates from the Trump administration. NTD's Daniel Monahan has your White House week in review.
President Trump brokered a historic Gaza ceasefire and the release of all living Israeli hostages still held in Gaza. Speaking to the Knesset, Trump shared an optimistic vision of the region, calling it the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope, and of God.
From Israel, Trump traveled to the Gaza Peace Summit in Egypt, signing the ceasefire agreement alongside Middle East leaders.
We don't want to fund anything having to do with bloodshed, hatred, or terror. We're also agreed that Gaza's reconstruction requires that it be demilitarized.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu nominated Trump to be the first non-Israeli recipient of Israel's highest honor.
As to that other prize, just a question of time, you'll get it. But I want you to get the Israel Prize, our highest award, to our greatest friend.
The Egyptian president also awarded President Trump the country's highest honor, and the Pakistani prime minister renominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. responded to Trump saying he didn't think his peace deal in the Middle East would be enough to get him into heaven.
You're doing God's work here. You've made peace in the Middle East, which is beyond anybody's imagination. This administration has not stopped working for the American people.
President Trump rushed back to America to award the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Charlie Kirk on what would have been his 32nd birthday.
I would not have missed this moment for anything in the world.
Now I can say with confidence, Mr. President, that you have given him the best birthday gift he could ever have.
President Trump this week also signed a proclamation declaring October 14th as the National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk.
Remember Charlie down on the patio? He could sit there all night long listening to this.
President Trump said on Thursday that costs of in vitro fertilization medications and treatment will be slashed.
EMD Serrano, the largest fertility drug manufacturer in the world, has agreed to provide massive discounts to all fertility drugs.
Trump also said the administration would expand access to insurance coverage for fertility care, allowing employers to offer a standalone fertility benefit.
Thank you for all you do to support families in this country.
Following a 2-hour call, President Trump said he and Russia's Vladimir Putin will meet in Hungary in the coming weeks to discuss ending the war in Ukraine.
I thought it was a very good phone call. I thought very productive.
The call came just a day before Trump hosted Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House to talk about possible U.S. missile support.
This is a terrible relationship the two of them have, and it's one of those things.
Trump said he's approved covert CIA actions inside Venezuela against what he calls a narco state run by President Nicolas Maduro.
We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela, and a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea.
Senator Jeanne Shaheen accused the administration of sliding the U.S. closer to outright conflict with no transparency or oversight. And for the 10th time, the Senate rejected a House-approved stopgap spending bill as the government shutdown drags on with no resolution in sight. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
On Capitol Hill, lawmakers left Washington after a short week and a 10th failed vote to reopen the government. Republican leadership offered Democrats a vote on their health care demands, but said that Democrats rejected their offer. Here's NTD's Melina Weiskup with a weekly recap from Capitol Hill.
Republicans say their latest attempt to move the needle on ending the government shutdown was shot down by Senate Democrats this week. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said he offered Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer a vote on Obamacare subsidies. Remember, that is one of the main issues that Democrats want addressed in this shutdown showdown. The Republicans say Democrats rejected it, instead insisting a guaranteed outcome.
I said none of us can guarantee an outcome on that. I have said consistently all along, this is part of the deliberative process. We're going to debate and discuss that. It's a very complicated, complex matter. There are no income caps on that. By the way, did you know if you're a hardworking taxpayer, middle-class earner, and your family's struggling to put food on the table, did you know that you are subsidizing wealthy people's health care with that subsidy? You probably didn't.
Schumer, though, outright denied the existence of any such offer.
We're not negotiating in public, plain and simple. And Leader Thune has not come to me with any proposal at this point.
The back and forth comes as the government shutdown drags on for 3 weeks. Both sides still locked in to their positions.
These threats to try to back us off our position, it's not working and it's not going to happen, because there is a Republican healthcare crisis that is devastating the American people, and we're going to continue to stand up for everyday Americans.
Are holding the American people hostage, using you as leverage to demand more wasteful spending. That's what they want, to the tune of $1.5 trillion of that.
Senators left town on Thursday after the 10th failed vote to fund the government. Republicans attempted a new strategy to carry on with the regular funding process during the shutdown. They put forth a full-year Pentagon funding bill. Senate Democrats tanked it, too.
President, Democrats like to position themselves as the party of the little guy and the defender of hardworking Americans. But as this vote makes clear, who do Democrats really care about? Democrats.
Senate Leader John Thune reportedly plans to force Democrats to vote next week on legislation to pay military service members during the shutdown. Meanwhile, Senate Democrats this week aim to stop the Trump administration's strikes on foreign terrorist organizations that are trafficking drugs in the South Caribbean Sea.
Congress should demand to know what the evidence is that these boats are part of a cartel, some invading or hostile foreign adversary that would justify using the rules of law and war against these kinds of boats.
The U.S. has conducted a total of 6 strikes so far, stopping approximately 100,000 lethal doses of drugs from being smuggled into the U.S.
The drug epidemic in this country has not gotten any better. The cartels have only gotten more powerful. So the president is taking these unprecedented steps, and it's making a real impact. We are seeing less boats with lots of drugs coming into the shores of the United States of America as a result of these successful strikes, and I think the American people can expect them to continue.
The Senate will soon vote on a Democrat resolution to stop the administration from continuing the strikes against foreign terrorist organizations. In the past month, similar attempts have failed both in the House and in the Senate. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
The Louvre Museum in Paris was robbed this morning. Thieves made off with several priceless jewels in what officials call a highly professional operation. NTD international correspondent David Vest reports from Paris.
Authorities are still investigating on the robbery that occurred on Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Is what police and media reports say about how it happened.
The thieves first secured the area with traffic cones before climbing up in a basket. Once they reached the first floor, they used an angle grinder to cut through a window and entered the Apollo Gallery. Their target was the museum's most valuable pieces, 2 display cases holding Napoleon's jewels and the jewels of the sovereigns. They smashed the cases and triggered an alarm at 9:37 a.m. Between 5 and 10 items were stolen, including brooches, tiaras, and necklaces, which the Interior Ministry described as priceless. The entire operation lasted less than 4 minutes before the suspect escaped on a motorbike on this street. Investigators believe it was a highly professional hit, right here in one of the most guarded museums in the world.
President Emmanuel Macron wrote on X that the thieves would be brought to justice and that every effort would be made to recover the stolen pieces. France's Interior Minister said a specialized police unit with a strong track record in solving high-profile robberies has been assigned to investigate the heist.
We have to say that these are professionals. Organized crime today targets objects of art, and museums, of course, have become targets, because France, as you know, is a country of heritage, a country with historical objects of heritage with great value.
The theft is likely to raise questions about security at the museum. Earlier this year, the Louvre requested urgent help from the French government to renovate its aging halls and better protect its collections. The theft has sparked outrage on social media, seen as a blow to French morale. National Rally leader Marine Le Pen called it a wound to the French soul, adding that museums and historic sites in France are not secured to the level of the threat they face. David Dives, NTD News, Paris.
Amid rising tensions with Venezuela, President Trump is now also sending a warning toward neighboring Colombia. This as military strikes on drug-carrying vessels continue. NTD's international correspondent Ariane Pozdar has the latest on the tensions in Latin America.
Transportation of massive amounts of drugs.
President Trump says he's working to crack down on illegal narcotics from South America that are making their way into the U.S. On Sunday, Trump accused Colombian President Gustavo Petro of being involved in the drug trafficking, alleging he has knowledge of drug fields in Colombia. Trump says Petro, quote, better close up those killing fields immediately, or the United States will close them up for him, and it won't be done nicely. Trump also immediately halted all subsidy payments to Colombia. This comes after the U.S. military on Thursday struck another Venezuelan drug-carrying submarine on its way to the U.S. This was the sixth such attack since September, bringing the reported death toll to 28. In previous attacks, the strikes killed all people on board, which Trump justified on Thursday, saying the traffickers are responsible for thousands of drug-related deaths in the U.S.
This was not an innocent group of people. I don't know too many people that have submarines. And that was an attack on a drug-carrying, loaded-up submarine.
But as it later turned out, Thursday's attack was the first one with reported survivors. On Saturday, President Trump announced 2 traffickers had died, while 2 others survived, writing the 2 surviving terrorists are being returned to their countries of origin, Ecuador and Colombia, for detention and prosecution. But peace between Venezuela and the U.S. might be in sight. Venezuela's socialist leader Nicolas Maduro reportedly offered Trump all of Venezuela's resources in exchange for a stop in the attacks. Here's how Trump responded when asked if Maduro really made that offer.
He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to fuck around with the United States.
So far, Trump has not indicated whether he would accept or even consider the offer. Ariane Pozdar, NTD News.
Coming up, the Gaza peace deal hanging by a thread as Israel launches strikes into Gaza, saying the Hamas terrorist group violated the ceasefire agreement. 2 geopolitical analysts join us to unpack what's next for the region. And is human connection suffering in the digital age? An expert zooms in on the challenges of social connection and shares tips for building confidence in the dating scene. That and more after this quick break.
I had a pretty normal mom life. Everything was pretty good, and it was a very happy life.
And we just had a new baby. And then all of a sudden, within a day or 2, she's on life support and fighting for her life.
And I knew something was pretty wrong. A little less than a week after I came home, I couldn't breathe. That's when we decided to go to the hospital. I was given the diagnosis that I had peripartum cardiomyopathy, which is basically a pregnancy-induced heart failure. They told me my only chance was a heart transplant.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural, organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure natural power of Puretang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Puretang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Uncertainty in the Middle East as the Israeli military launches strikes into Gaza, saying that Hamas terrorist group violated the ceasefire agreement. The IDF says Hamas fired an anti-tank missile at Israeli forces operating in the Rafah area and that Israel responded. Joining us now to unpack it all are two guests, David Wormser, Middle East Affairs Analyst at the Center for Security Policy, and Brandon Weichert, geopolitical analyst and author of The Shadow War, Iran's Quest for Supremacy. Thank you both so much for joining us. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said while Israel will take strong action against any violations of the ceasefire, his office did not threaten to return to war. David, first, what do these latest strikes signal to you? Is the peace deal off?
No, the peace deal isn't off yet. Clearly, Hamas does not accept the terms of the peace deal, even though they accepted the terms of the peace deal. They are, Nazal, one of its main heads, said today they won't disarm, they won't give up security control, and they really only want about a 3-year hudna or a ceasefire until they're strong enough to attack Israel again. Those are his words. And we see it in action today as we've seen a lot of violence against Palestinians by the Hamas movement to try to stay in power and destroy their opposition. But then today we saw, of course, 3 attacks almost simultaneously against Israeli forces, the worst of which claimed 2 Israeli soldiers' lives. So it's hanging by a thread, and it's hanging by a thread because Hamas does not seem to really accept the terms of the ceasefire, even though, as I said, about a week ago they did. So that really tells you where it's likely going. And that's a big challenge for the United States and Israel. But the peace deal is not off yet. The Israelis said they're not going to walk out. The ceasefire is still holding in their mind, despite a strong. And they expect now the third parties to intervene to force Hamas back into compliance. So there's still some hope for that, as dim as it may be.
And Brandon, your thoughts on all of this?
Well, the official narrative is not adding up anymore. Any more than the anything else with this conflict. The official narrative is as David has described, and that is what's being reported for most of the media. But I'm hearing that that is not, in fact, what happened, and that at least in one of these instances, the Israelis are exaggerating what did happen to try to create this incident that will trigger a break in the ceasefire, or at least that was the intent. It does seem that the Trump administration, because I was following the story all day, the Trump administration has been very keen on tracking the story, and they are aware of exactly what happened. And the reason that the Israelis and Hamas are both apparently going back to their neutral corners is because the Trump administration indicated to both parties they are aware of what's happening, and the official narrative that's being spun is obviously not accurate, because if it were, the Trump administration has already indicated if Hamas breaks the ceasefire in any way, they will fully back the Israelis in restarting the hostilities. So the fact that this isn't going on is indicative that there's more to the story than we're being told. I'm being told in one of the cases in Rafah, basically there were some Israelis who ran over an improvised explosive device that may have been sitting there in the rubble for weeks and months. So we won't know, obviously, but obviously the fact that the Israelis are standing down, Hamas is standing down, the Trump administration is not generating some kind of retaliation is indicative that this is not what it seems to be.
Now, David, I know you want to jump in right there, but first, amid these reports of violence in Gaza, the U.S. State Department did issue a notice saying, in part, if Hamas violates the ceasefire, the U.S. and other guarantors of peace agreement would respond. Hamas, meanwhile, of course, says the allegations are false. Given that, where do we stand in terms of the peace deal? What can we expect next?
Well, again, despite what Brandon said, this was clearly an attack by Hamas. There's evidence of it. I don't know. He's using Hamas propaganda here, and it comes from Kurt Mills,
David, we're going to stop right
it.
there. I'm not spreading Hamas propaganda. This is being reported by the American Conservative, which is a publication I work for as well. We are not Hamas propaganda.
Kurt Mills, yes.
That is a very low blow for the guy who spread Iraqi WMD lies. I would really be careful with how we're going to describe me as being an apologist for Hamas, which I am not. And I resent that implication. So let's reset the conversation and keep it civil, please.
Kurt Mills used Hamas lies. And there are films of this. It was an airborne device. 2 Israeli soldiers are dead. There were snipers that were simultaneously attacking. It's kind of pretty clear. But at any rate, bottom line is, from what I can tell, the Israelis want to keep the lid on this right now. Not because of necessarily it wasn't what Kurt Mills says it is or what Brendan says it is, but simply because they have a visitor tomorrow, the vice president. And the vice president is trying to figure out how to move this now forward and not collapse. So the Israelis want to make sure that they're going to be there and not be the ones that make it collapse. Hamas, on the other hand, has already said it doesn't accept the 20-point plan anymore because it says very clearly it will not disarm and it will not give up power.
And Brandon, in terms of Hamas, the terror group is flouting the agreement. President Trump saying earlier this week that if Hamas doesn't disarm, we will disarm them, adding it won't be U.S. troops, though. What would disarming Hamas look like? Who would do the disarming?
Well, the president already said what would happen is that he said through a proxy, which means Israel, through a proxy, we would disarm them, which means that we would continue with supplying Israel with the weapons they would require to conceivably accomplish this mission. But again, I reiterate the fact that this has not escalated into what the expectation would have been, which is that if Hamas fully broke this thing, then the Israelis would have had all the impetus they needed to initiate hostilities free and clear. The fact of the matter is that has not happened here, which indicates there is more to the story than what we are being told. And that is the key element here. I'm not saying Hamas isn't going to break it. I've been very clear for years. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They are not to be trusted. But in this specific instance, there is more going on the ground than we are aware of. It is a fluid situation. We are all trying to get information. Some of it is conflicting, but the official narrative does not seem to be adding up because otherwise we would be ending this deal and the Israelis would be allowed to continue on with the original mission, which was to basically secure Gaza more permanently. And the fact is that's not happening, which indicates there's more going on.
And Brandon, staying with you quickly, taking a step back here, given the history in the region, it does seem a lasting peace is extremely difficult to achieve. In your view, what would it take to get to that lasting peace in the region? What would need to change for that to be possible?
Well, I think that you have two very radical groups running Israel, a country, and then Palestine, Gaza, whatever you want to call it, a territory. You have Islamists and Hamas who are head choppers, and they're not really interested in whatever they say they're interested in. But you also have a Zionist element that is very much looking for ways to get out of having to comport with this deal. So you have two very radical groups. I think in a perfect world, there would be an election that would remove the current government in Israel and replace it with a more amicable one toward peace. And then we could hopefully pressure Hamas to, if not disarm, then certainly to create a coalition government, for lack of a better term, in Gaza. But right now, it seems like we're in a bit of a frozen conflict. Everybody's waiting to basically reopen hostilities. My only hope here, Tiffany, is that Uncle Sam is not stuck in the middle of these two forces. It is not in America's interest to resolve this conflict. I have been saying for years, and this is probably where I disagree with some of my friends at the American Conservative, I want us out of this conflict entirely and let the locals figure out their own mess. This is not our problem, in my personal opinion. And so that is the perfect world for me, is we can focus on more important strategic matters. But this is the issue, and I do not believe, though, that the ceasefire will lead to a full peace. I just don't think that's possible, and I've said that before in your program.
And David, your thoughts on how we would even be able to achieve that lasting peace in the region?
Well, you have the problem of Qatar and Turkey being run by the Muslim Brotherhood, which are really supportive, if not sponsoring, Hamas. So their involvement is a problematic involvement. For the moment, they were scared by Israel's behavior by striking Doha, and they backed down. So, and that was what led them to rein in Hamas enough to get to the deal we already have. But going forward, I think the real deal is a little further south. It's with the Saudis and the UAE, who don't have a particular love affair with Qatar or Turkey. In fact, they see them as a great strategic threat. And the Israelis are drawing very close to them. By the way, Saudi Arabia and UAE have already criticized Qatar and Turkey for their involvement with Hamas and said very clearly Hamas is responsible. But at any rate, bottom line is, I think there's a path to peace and a more southern route with the expansion of the Abraham Accords. But I wouldn't count Qatar and Turkey to be all that involved, because they have a strategic interest in sabotaging that to some extent. But they won't be able to. At the end of the day, I think the interests with Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Israel together are too tight to avoid the long-term evolution of some sort of expansion of the Abraham Accords to include Saudi Arabia.
A lot to watch for sure here. David Wormser, Brandon Weichert, we are out of time, so thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Sure.
Coming up is human connection suffering in the digital age. An expert zooms in on the challenges of social connection and shares tips for building confidence in the dating scene. And home kitchens in Washington state become bakeries where volunteers churn out loaves of bread for people in need. See them in action in just a minute, right after this quick break.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd, and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers. He connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
My
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Tech experts are calling for caution as they see an expanding AI investment bubble. They say it's reminding them of the 90s dot-com bubble in the 2008 real estate crash. Some experts are saying an AI bubble could cause a financial crisis much worse than previous ones. Julian Guerin from Macro Strategy Partnership told CNN he sees AI as not delivering the potential that was predicted. He added it's not growing on the same scale as the money and hype flowing into it. Bill Smead of Smead Capital Management told Yahoo the signs are all pointing towards an AI bubble. He says the extremely high valuations of AI companies are not tied to the reality of their potential to deliver innovation. He predicts AI stocks will start quickly dumping down in value. Smead is also pointing to AI companies that are investing in other AI companies. It creates the illusion that the industry is growing. Yahoo reports that experts saw something similar happening in the dot-com bubble era. According to CNN, there haven't been significant developments in AI technology since ChatGPT-4 came out in the first part of 2023. As dating goes digital, many say real connection is getting harder to find. What's behind the struggle to form lasting relationships? In this preview episode of Vital Signs, hypnotherapist Jeffrey Rose sits down with Brendan Fallon to reveal the psychology of attraction and how hypnosis can help build dating confidence.
Romantic love, life's sweet reward. But not always. For many, pursuing romance has left them with a bitter aftertaste of rejection.
Oh my goodness!
That's assuming they weren't too overwhelmed by insecurity to approach their desired partner in the first place. What if it were possible, though, to unravel the knots of self-doubt and lessen the sting of past rejections, so as to go forth boldly and deftly into the relationship arena? My guest today, Jeffrey Rose, says that it is possible through hypnosis. Jeffrey is a decades-seasoned hypnotherapist and director of the Advanced Hypnosis Center in New York. His hypnotherapy interventions extend to weight loss, sleep improvement, addiction recovery, and boosting dating confidence. Today, he'll reveal hypnosis techniques to ease the stress of first contact and first date with your person of interest. He'll reveal the prime difference in what women versus men are looking for in a partner. And we'll explore whether you really can persuade the person you admire to admire you. The answer will surprise you. Welcome to Vital Signs, where we learn how to get healthier from all angles, from the biochemical and nutritional to the things we do that nourish our minds and our souls. I'm Brendan Fallon. Jeffrey, wonderful to have you join us on Vital Signs today.
Great to be here.
You're working in this area that is, I think, it's such a kind of pain point for people. In part, you're working in the relationship dating scene. We look at the current climate. We have these dating apps, the way that people communicate nowadays. It's not like a phone call. It's text message. There's communication can be very cut and dry and quite brutal. I'm wondering, working in this setting, how have you seen the way that people connect with one another, how a man and women will connect, change over recent decades?
It's very interesting and very challenging, because right now, when you're meeting people, you're doing research on these people. You're doing a Google search, going to LinkedIn, you're looking at all their social media. So you're getting like a dossier on an individual that you're considering as a possible mate, okay? And unless someone's going to be coveting that information, you're an open book. And that makes it interesting, as opposed to the old school where you'd go out to a club or you go out to a restaurant, or you meet a person in a park and you strike up a conversation. You get to know that person. It takes a couple of dates to learn about their preferences, their interests, what they like to travel, what kind of music they listen to. We don't have that now. So we already have like the basic info, and then we need to expand on that and try to connect. I mean, I'm talking about old school, but if you really think about old school, you would be living in clans of 250 people. Everybody knew each other. We were comfortable together. We were dancing and chanting and hunting together, eating our meals together. And we would feel comfortable. We would know everybody as an extension of us. We wouldn't be intimidated about having to talk to somebody because we're all on the same team. We're all together. So it could be very intimidating for a man, especially, to approach a woman and be expected to get some rejection there.
I think rejection is a real core aspect of the human condition, and we're rejected in various ways, often from an early age. This might be the hardest thing that someone wanting to start a relationship has to deal with. How can you kind of turn that experience of rejection, such a raw experience, into a positive for someone so that they're not so jaded, perhaps, or so affected as they try to get out there and meet someone?
Well, in doing hypnotherapy, I'm working on the core of an individual's, their self-esteem, so they can feel more comfortable and positive about themselves and love and appreciate themselves and find greater worth in who they are. So that if someone rejects them, which is just one way of framing things, instead of just saying, next, I'll move on to somebody, you could just say, well, I guess that person's not for me, or we're not a good fit, and that's okay.
To see that full interview and others on how to optimize health, go to ept.ms/vital signs. Vital Signs offers general health information not intended as medical diagnosis or advice. Please consult your doctor before undertaking a new health regimen.
Next, Meta is rolling out new regulations to block inappropriate content from underage users. Among them, a new policy would allow parents more control over how their children chat with AI chatbots. Meta's Instagram announced this week that it will rate content with a tool similar to the parental guidance movie rating system. Users under age 18 will automatically be subjected to this system. On top of that, parents will be able to block certain AI chatbots on their children's accounts. Parents will also get a briefing on what topics their children discussed with AI on the platform. Topics like self-harm, eating disorders, or adult content will be automatically blocked. The new policies came after media reports exposed Meta's chatbots were discussing inappropriate subjects with minors. The tech giant says the new rules will first roll out earlier next year in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Lost Voices of Fentanyl held its 5th annual rally in Washington, D.C. on Saturday. The nonprofit seeks to raise awareness about the fentanyl epidemic and demand legislative actions. NTD's Sam Wong was at the rally to hear from the victims' families.
At the backdrop of the Washington Monument, families from around the country gathered on Saturday to rally against an epidemic that's plaguing the nation.
That's my son pushing the swing.
Debbie Evans is just one among many who is struggling with heartbreak. After losing her son to fentanyl poisoning in 2020, she decided to raise awareness through her artistic talent. In a drawing titled Heaven's Playground, she depicted dozens of children who have passed away from fentanyl overdose, many of these tragic stories hitting too close to home.
I've been over there crying most of the time listening to all their stories, and I know a lot of them now because I've drawn all their children. I still wish my son was here. He promised me he'd never leave me.
And some are turning sorrow into action. Jacob Tao's 3-year-old son Leo died last year after being exposed to fentanyl while in his mother's care. He's now pushing for more guardrails to keep children safe, starting in his home state of Oklahoma, with hopes of turning the effort into a federal law named after little Leo.
I started working on a petition called Leo's Law that would actually require DHS to be testing parents for fentanyl if it's involved or suspected in a case. It could have saved Leo's life, and it could save hundreds to thousands of other children in America.
Today, most of the world's fentanyl precursors are manufactured in China. The deadly narcotic has led to a nationwide epidemic responsible for the death of hundreds of thousands of Americans. According to an investigation by the House-led Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, fentanyl manufacturing is an industry directly subsidized by the communist regime.
The China Select Committee, Democrat, Republicans alike, announced to the world that China was deliberately poisoning us. We are the targeted nation, America. They wanted to destabilize our country. Are we going to have a military in another 10 years going at this rate?
Tackling the fentanyl epidemic has long been on the radar of the Trump administration, from striking drug boats off the coast of Venezuela to designating cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
So when people in this world start talking about
Why are we going after these drug boats? Why are we bombing and using kinetic strikes? Because look at these babies. We've never had in the history of this country babies dying. This is what it's about. So the people that have a problem with the aggressiveness of President Trump and his administration, why don't you pay attention to what's going on? We're losing a generation.
Sam Wong, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
Coming up, home kitchens in Washington state become bakeries where volunteers turn out loaves of bread for people in need. And the powerful gods of ancient Egypt are having a get-together at New York's Metropolitan Museum. Find out how ancient Egyptians solved life's mysteries through gods and goddesses. That and more in just a minute after this quick break.
£6 prescription glasses from Select Specs are always great value. There are no offer codes or first-time customers only. Anyone can buy them, anytime. And you can upgrade to Select Specs Express for next-day delivery. And with deferred payments, you can spread the cost.
See now, pay later with Select Specs £6 specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options available at selectspecs.com/£6.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
Wait. Call now to find out about our Medicare plan.
Why do we have to sit through so many Medicare commercials this time of year? It's endless.
Good question, Edith. I'm glad you asked. We see so many commercials this time of year because it's the only time, other than special circumstances, when Medicare recipients can change their plan for Part C. Original Medicare only covers Parts A and B, but a Medicare Advantage plan has additional benefits that Original Medicare doesn't offer.
So now's the time to fill those spaces?
That's right, Archie. And every year, there are changes to what benefits you may receive from your Part C plan. Call right now to find out what plan best suits your needs.
It's easy, easy, don't delay. Pick up the phone and call today.
Call now for your free Medicare review.
1-833-469-1754. 1-833-469-1754.
You may now return to your regularly scheduled programming.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The first hydrogen-powered race cars are hitting the track in Saudi Arabia. The Extreme H Off-Road Series kicks off with the latest advances in hydrogen fuel cell technology.
Cars known as Pioneer 25 generate electricity by combining hydrogen with oxygen, producing only water vapor as exhaust. Extreme weather and rugged terrain, the series tests not just the speed of these cars, but their resilience and innovation. Each vehicle runs on a mix of fuel cell system and high-performance batteries, allowing them to maintain power through intense desert stages. Engineers have designed them to perform in extreme heat.
The cars were developed as a next step up from the electric Extreme E Series racers. The new cars carry hydrogen tanks that fuel a cell. It then converts hydrogen into electricity, which powers the car's battery and dual electric motors. Drivers adjusting to the new machines say that while the hydrogen system charges the battery during operation, the cars are much heavier than previous electric models. This means they have to be driven differently. There are only 3 hydrogen-powered cars available for average consumers to purchase. Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai each make a hydrogen model, but a drawback is that hydrogen fueling infrastructure has limited availability compared to gas and pure electric vehicles. Next, a roundup of antics perfect for the fall season. A humongous Halloween decoration escapes from home, and one man claims the pound-for-pound pumpkin growing title. Plus, a haunting image wins photo of the year and a warning for pet owners. Watch.
Take a look at the week we had. In Parma Heights, Ohio, police pulled up on a pumpkin trying to flee. The festive fugitive rolled down the street before officers got their hands on it, but this large jack-o'-lantern wasn't going down easily.
We're currently struggling with it right now.
Police were finally able to wrangle and mostly deflate the Halloween decor, getting it into a patrol car. With the thing safely secured, officers drove it home so it could go on display for the rest of the holiday.
2, 3, 4, 6!
Check out the new Pound for Pound Pumpkin King. Brandon Dawson of Santa Rosa, California, in his prize-winning gourd clocked in at 2,346 pounds at the Safeway World Championship Pumpkin Weigh-Off, taking the title by more than 300 pounds, earning that sweet Pumpkin King ring. Plus, he gets more than $21,000 in prize money, or $9 per pound. Another prize winner, this haunting image of a brown hyena standing in front of an abandoned building in a former diamond mining town in Namibia. The pic beat out more than 60,000 entries to claim the 2025 Wildlife Photographer of the Year award. The annual contest celebrates the world's best nature photography and wildlife photojournalism. Brown hyenas are so rare, organizers say it took the South African photographer a full decade to capture one on camera. Here's wild video of a domesticated animal sparking trouble. The Chapel Hill Fire Department says the dog Colton gnawed on a lithium-ion battery until the thing burst into flames.
He bit into it, and you can see it, he's surprised by it, and then he's like, uh-oh, what did I do?
They posted the video online to highlight the dangers of leaving those batteries unsecured. Other than a bit of a scare, Colton is perfectly okay. The house only suffered some smoke damage and a burned rug.
Home kitchens in Washington state have become volunteer bakeries, churning out loaves of bread. They're part of a project called Community Loaves that's working to get food to people in need. Take a look.
Home baker Cheryl Ewaldson has baked nearly 800 loaves of bread in just 2 years. Not because she loves carbs, but to help her neighbors. Her oven creations become donations.
I liked Community Loaves because it's the opportunity for me to bake something and to share something with others in the community where they don't necessarily need to know who I am, but they know that there's a community that loves and cares for them.
Former culinary school dean Catherine Curley is the founder of Community Loaves. She started the organization in Seattle when the pandemic hit in 2020.
I was home, displaced from my own work, and loved to bake. And just an idea sparked, would it be possible for us to help from our home get important, valuable nutrition to our food banks?
Since then, the initiative has grown into a network of nearly 900 volunteer bakers. They're spread out across Washington, Oregon, California, and Idaho. According to Curley, Community Loaves has already donated more than 220,000 loaves since its founding.
It makes us feel like we're becoming a bit of a supplier to that emergency food system, and it's all on volunteer power.
Community Loaves expects to keep baking, filling bread baskets for families in need. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Ancient Egypt arrives in the heart of Manhattan as the Metropolitan Museum unveils its latest exhibit, Divine Egypt. Over 200 artifacts showcase the profound role deities like Anubis and Ra had on ancient Egyptian life.
The divine landscape of ancient Egypt is full of gods, actually some 1,500 if you count all of them. This exhibition focuses on 25 of the main deities. Most of the exhibition is about life, and that is what all of these deities were about. Even in overcoming death, it was about living forever. It was not about death.
Nothing brings a crowd quite like ancient Egypt, according to Diana Craig Patch, the Met's curator of Egyptian art, and crowds have been packing in since the exhibit opened on October 12th. The exhibit Divine Egypt explores how the gods were envisioned not only in temples where only kings or priests could go, but in daily worship by ordinary people. Ancient Egyptian civilization lasted some 3,000 years, from 3300 BC onward. The show covers all periods and features over 200 works, from huge limestone statues to tiny golden figurines. 140 from the Met's own collection and others lent by museums across the globe. According to Craig Patch, the Egyptians kept bringing in new gods or kept giving existing gods new roles. Research for the show was daunting. Ancient artists never signed or claimed their work. If you'd like to catch a glimpse of the gods for yourself, Divine Egypt is open now until January 19th next year. And that's all for today's news. Round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.